My name is Michael, and what you're about to hear is my story. For more than 10 years, I thought I had it all: a wife I loved, a home we built together, and a future that felt certain. I trusted her with everything. She was my partner, my best friend, my entire world, but betrayal has a way of showing itself, no matter how carefully it's hidden. The day I found out she was cheating on me was the day my world cracked open. The pain was unbearable, but the rage was even stronger. This isn't just a story about infidelity, it's a story about how far a broken heart can go when trust is shattered. I didn't cry, I didn't beg, I didn't walk away. Instead, I planned. And piece by piece, I made sure she and the man she betrayed me with lost everything. Some of you might think I went too far. Maybe you'll judge me, but when you hear the full story, you'll understand why I did what I did. At first, nothing seemed wrong. She was still smiling at me in the mornings, still texting me during the day, still kissing me goodnight before bed. But if you've ever lived with someone for years, you know the difference between routine affection and real love. I started noticing little things. The way she guarded her phone like it was a secret diary, the sudden late nights at work that had no explanation, the scent of perfume that wasn't hers lingering on her clothes when she came home. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who saw shadows everywhere, but the feeling wouldn't leave me. Deep inside, I knew something was off. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and reached across the bed. She wasn't there. I got up, walked quietly to the living room, and found her sitting on the couch with the glow of her phone lighting up her face. She was smiling at the screen, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. When she saw me standing there, she jumped, locked the phone, and forced a laugh. "Couldn't sleep," she said, but the look in her eyes told a different story. That was the night I realized my marriage wasn't what I thought it was. And that was the night the idea of revenge first planted itself in my mind. After that night, I couldn't look at her the same way. Every smile felt fake. Every excuse sounded rehearsed. She thought she was being clever, but I could see right through her. She started working late more often. Sometimes she came home with her hair freshly styled, her lipstick smudged, and an energy in her step that had nothing to do with me. I asked questions, of course, but her answers were short and sharp. "You're being controlling. Don't you trust me?" She twisted everything back on me, like I was the problem. One evening, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The message was short, but it was enough to rip my chest open. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I thought she'd hear it from the bathroom. That was the moment my suspicions became reality, but instead of confronting her right then and there, I stayed calm. I slid the phone back exactly where it was and acted like nothing happened. Because I knew anger wouldn't give me what I wanted. Cold, calculated patience would. From that day on, I started documenting everything. Her late nights, her lies, the messages I found. Every detail went into a file, my file of revenge. When you love someone for years, you learn their rhythms, the way they laugh when they're nervous, the way their voice changes when they lie, the way their eyes dart when they're hiding something. And once you start paying attention, those little things become impossible to ignore. My wife had become a stranger in her own home. She wasn't the woman I married anymore. The warmth that used to live in her voice was gone. Her laughter felt forced, like she was performing a role she no longer cared about. At the dinner table, her eyes were always glued to her phone, her fork pushing food around her plate instead of eating. I noticed she had started dressing differently too. New clothes, tighter, bolder, nothing like the conservative style she had worn for years. She claimed it was just trying something new. But deep down I knew she wasn't dressing for me. Then came the nights when she wouldn't come home until after midnight. The excuses piled up: traffic, deadlines, drinks with coworkers. At first, I tried to believe her. But each lie chipped away at the man I used to be, replacing him with someone darker, someone colder. One Friday night, I decided to follow her. I waited until she left the house, dressed to kill, in a black dress I hadn't seen before. She thought she was clever, telling me she had a girls' night. I gave her 15 minutes head start, then got in my car and tailed her at a distance. She drove across town, not to a bar or a restaurant, but to a quiet residential street. She parked in front of a house I didn't recognize, checked her phone, and then she smiled, a real smile. The kind of smile she hadn't shown me in months. And then he came out, a man, tall, confident, walked out the front door like he had been waiting just for her. They embraced right there on the sidewalk, like teenagers who didn't care about the world. I watched as they kissed, her hands tangled in his hair, her body pressed against his like she belonged to him. My blood ran cold. My chest tightened until I thought my ribs would crack. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Every instinct in me screamed to get out of the car, to drag her away, to make him regret ever touching her. But I didn't. I stayed still, silent, hidden in the shadows, because in that moment, I realized something. If I confronted them now, all I'd have was anger. She'd cry, she'd deny, maybe even beg for forgiveness, but nothing would change. She'd go back to him eventually. People like her always do. No, I needed something better, something permanent. So I drove home, my mind buzzing with 1,000 thoughts. Betrayal burned in my veins, but underneath it all was something far more dangerous: clarity. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't even going to leave. I was going to destroy her, piece by piece, quietly, methodically, until she had nothing left. And as I lay in bed that night, listening to the silence of our home, I realized I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a hunter, and my prey was already in the trap. She just didn't know it yet. The morning after I saw them together, I felt like a ghost moving through my own life. She came home late, slipped into bed, and pretended nothing had happened. I didn't touch her. I didn't ask where she'd been, and that silence, it scared her more than any argument ever could. I could see it in her eyes when she woke up and found me already sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee like nothing was wrong. But inside, everything was wrong. I knew I couldn't just act on impulse. Rage is sloppy, rage makes mistakes, and I couldn't afford mistakes. If I wanted true justice, if I wanted to break her the way she broke me, I needed to be smarter, colder, more patient than she ever imagined. I could be. So I started small. Every time she left the house, I tracked her movements. I downloaded a GPS tracker onto her car when she was too distracted scrolling through her phone to notice. I hacked into our shared laptop and found a way to mirror her text messages onto my own device. She thought she was being clever, deleting the evidence every night before crawling into bed beside me. She never realized I already had everything saved. The lies piled up like a mountain. Messages about hotel rooms, late night calls that ended with "I miss you already," selfies she sent him wearing lingerie she never once wore for me. I collected them all, screenshots, recordings, timestamps. Every single piece of betrayal neatly organized into a folder I named Truth. But it wasn't enough to just know. I needed her to feel it. To feel the walls closing in around her. One evening, while she was in the shower, I slipped her phone from the counter and scrolled through her latest messages. They were planning a weekend trip together, a cabin by the lake, romantic, secluded, perfect for them. She had told me she'd be visiting her sister. I almost laughed out loud right there in the bathroom. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, she gave me that same fake smile. "Work is killing me this week," she said, shaking her head. "I might need a little break soon." I nodded, pretending to be sympathetic. "You should. You deserve it." She kissed me on the cheek, grateful that I was still playing the fool. But the moment she left the room, my mask dropped, because in my mind, the wheels of my plan had already started turning. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not at home. Not in some screaming match where she could twist the story and make me the villain. No, I was going to let her keep digging her own grave. Let her think she was safe. Let her fall deeper into his arms. And then, when she least expected it, when she thought she had gotten away with everything, I was going to take it all from her. Her reputation, her lover, her freedom. I would burn her world down piece by piece until all that was left was ashes. And the best part, she would never see it coming. By now, the lies tasted sweet on her tongue. She thought she had mastered the art of deception, but what she didn't realize was that every move she made was part of a game she wasn't even aware she was playing. My game. I stopped acting suspicious. Stopped asking where she was going or when she'd be home. Instead, I became supportive, even encouraging. "Go out with your friends," I'd say. You deserve a break." My calmness made her reckless. She thought I had accepted the distance between us, that I was too blind or too weak to see the truth, but in reality, I was watching her closer than ever. The first step of my game was planting seeds of unease. Subtle things, never enough to raise alarms, but just enough to make her question herself. One night, as she was getting ready to leave, I leaned against the doorframe and casually said, "You smell different lately." "New perfume." She froze, just for a second, before smiling. "Oh, yeah, just picked it up at the mall." But I knew. The truth, it wasn't perfume from the mall, it was his cologne, clinging to her skin. Another night, she came home later than usual. I was sitting in the dark, the TV off, just waiting. When she walked in, startled to see me awake, I gave her a smile and said, "You look beautiful tonight. Did you have fun?" Her hands trembled slightly as she set her purse down. "Just drinks with the girls," she muttered. I didn't challenge her. Didn't raise my voice. Instead, I kept that same calm, knowing smile. And that silence ate at her. She started watching me more closely, as if trying to gauge whether I suspected anything. That was the beauty of it. I wanted her to feel safe, but never certain. I even slipped a few little traps into her daily routine. Once, I left her phone slightly out of place after checking her messages, knowing she'd notice. Another time, I accidentally called her by the wrong name at dinner, his name's wife. She laughed it off nervously, pretending not to care, but her eyes betrayed her. Every reaction, every flicker of fear, I stored away like ammunition. And then came the night I set my first real snare. She told me she was heading out for work drinks. I kissed her goodbye and wished her fun, but instead of staying home, I drove to the very bar she claimed she was going to. I waited outside, hidden in the shadows, and watched as she never showed. Instead, her car pulled away toward the other side of town. I followed from a distance until she pulled into that same house, the house of the man she thought was her secret. This time, I didn't just watch. I pulled out my phone and filmed it. Her walking up the steps, him opening the door. Their embrace, their kiss, evidence undeniable and raw. When I got home that night, I transferred the footage onto a hidden drive, labeled innocently as work. Files, she'd never find it. And when the time was right, it would be the weapon I used to destroy her. But here's the twist. I wasn't just building a case against her anymore. I was building a performance, a story where I controlled every scene, every line, every outcome, and the curtain hadn't even risen yet. It started with little things. She'd come home, toss her bag on the couch, and for a moment her eyes would linger on me, searching for something, anger, suspicion, anything. But all she ever found was my calm smile. That smile became her nightmare. Up until now, my anger had been focused on her. She was the one who vowed loyalty, who shared my bed, my home, my life. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized he wasn't innocent. He knew she was married. He knew she belonged to someone else. Yet he still touched what wasn't his, and for that, he would pay. I started following him. At first, it was simple, watching from a distance when they met. I learned his name, where he worked, even the car he drove, a shiny black sedan, always polished, like he cared too much about appearances. Perfect. The first time I saw him up close was in broad daylight. He was outside his office, laughing with a colleague, his arm draped casually over his briefcase. He looked confident, smug even. The kind of man who thought rules didn't apply to him. I memorized everything. The way he carried himself, his routine, the time he left for lunch, the bar he liked to stop at on Fridays. Piece by piece, I built a map of his life. But the more I watched, the more I realized something. He wasn't just careless, he was predictable. Predictability is a weakness, and I could exploit it. One night, I created a new email account and sent him a message from a fake name, pretending to be a woman interested in meeting up. I wanted to see how quickly he'd bite. Within an hour, he replied. A man like him didn't value loyalty, not even with my wife. He valued novelty, attention, the thrill of the forbiddens. That told me everything I needed to know. Meanwhile, at home, I continued my act. I kissed my wife goodnight. I made her breakfast. I played the doting husband, while behind the mask I was charting the downfall of not one, but two people. I began leaving breadcrumbs for him too. Subtle things, like parking my car a block away from his office, letting him catch a glimpse of me in passing. Not enough to be sure, but enough to make him wonder. Once, when he left the bar late at night, he found a note tucked under his windshield wiper, just for words, scrawled in sharp black ink. "I know about you." He looked around, nervous, scanning the street, but of course, I was already gone. The next time he met with her, he was jumpy. Kept checking his phone, glancing over his shoulder. She noticed, I could tell, but he brushed it off. "Just work stress," he probably said, but I knew better. He was starting to feel the same paranoia I had been feeding into her, and that's when I realized something delicious. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about control. I wasn't simply exposing their betrayal. I was rewriting the story. They thought they were in charge, sneaking around, making choices. But the truth was, I had already stolen their freedom. I was pulling their strings. And they didn't even know it. Soon, they both learned the same painful lesson. No one takes from me and walks away unscarred. The game had just expanded. And this time, I wasn't going to destroy only a marriage. I was going to destroy 2 entire lives. One evening, she asked me, almost casually, "Do you ever get tired of us?" I set my glass down slowly, pretending to think. Tired? No. People change, sure, but tired, never. Her lips curved into a faint smile, but her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve. She didn't like my answer, because she wanted me to doubt, to pull away, to give her more space. Instead, I gave her stability, and it made her restless. The next morning, I noticed she lingered in the bathroom longer than usual, staring into the mirror, reapplying her makeup twice. Almost like she was covering guilt rather than skin. And then came the first real slip. She left her phone on the counter while she went outside to take the trash. It buzzed once, twice, 3 times in a row. Curiosity got the better of me, though I already knew what I'd find. Messages lit up the screen. Did he suspect anything? "I can't stop thinking about you. This weekend can't come fast enough." By the time she came back inside, I had already memorized every word. She smiled at me, forced and fragile. "Want me to make breakfast?" "Sure," I said. And I watched her cook, her hands trembling as she scrambled eggs, burning the edges because she couldn't keep her focus. That was when I realized she wasn't just lying anymore. She was scared, but fear doesn't stop people like her. It makes them sloppy. So I started feeding that fear. Quietly, carefully, I began leaving small hints around the house. Once, I printed a random text conversation one she hadn't deleted and left it half sticking out of a drawer. She found it and went pale, shoving it deep inside before I could notice. Another time, I left a hotel receipt on the counter, not from her, but from a fake booking I made under her name. She never confronted me about it, but that night she barely touched her dinner. She was unraveling. One night, she woke me up at 2 a.m., whispering in the dark, "Do you still love me?" I turned to her, brushing her hair back gently, and whispered, "Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" Her eyes searched mine, desperate for reassurance, but behind her trembling smile, I saw the seed of paranoia blooming. And that's exactly what I wanted, because soon, she wouldn't just be lying to me. She'd be lying to herself, questioning her own reality, and when the moment came for me to strike, she wouldn't know which way was up, which way was down. I would be her only constant. Her only truth. The cruelest kind of revenge isn't rage. It's patience. It's letting them walk straight into their own destruction while you hold the door open with a smile. And she had just stepped across the threshold. The thing about affairs is simple. They survive on secrecy. Secrecy makes everything sweeter, sharper, more dangerous. But take that secrecy away, and what's left? Just 2 people standing in the ugly daylight, stripped of their lies. That became my next move. Strip them bare. I started small. I printed out screenshots of her text conversations with him. Not all of them, just fragments, enough to raise questions, not enough to give answers. One afternoon, I slipped a folded note into the glove box of his car. Inside were 3 printed lines. "You're not the only one. She lies to both of us. Ask her about Friday." I imagined his face when he found it. The way his heart would race, the doubts that would fester. It wasn't proof, but it was poison, and poison doesn't need proof to kill. Meanwhile, with her, I played a different game. One night, after dinner, I leaned back in my chair and said casually, "A coworker mentioned seeing you downtown the other day. Said you weren't alone. Who were you with?" Her fork froze halfway to her Mouth. For just a second, the mask slipped. She recovered quickly. Must have been someone else, but that second was all I needed. I smiled, pretending to buy it, while her mind spiraled in the silence. The next week, I made my boldest move yet. I created a fake social media account using a woman's photo and sent him messages that hinted at her being unfaithful to him, a cruel mirror of my own reality. "She wasn't with you last Saturday night, was she? Thought you should know." He responded instantly. "Who is this?" I never answered, because the silence was louder than words. When they met after that, I could see the cracks forming. They sat in his car, parked in a quiet lot, but their body language betrayed them. He was leaning away, arms crossed, asking sharp questions. She was defensive, animated, trying to hold him close. I couldn't hear their words, but I didn't need to. I could read the storm in their faces: distrust, accusation, fear. That night, she came home later than usual, eyes red, makeup smeared. She didn't say a word. She just crawled into bed and faced away from me, her back trembling with silent sobs. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the corner of my lips curving upward, because this was what I wanted, for the fire they thought was passion to turn into smoke, choking them both, for their love to rot under the weight of suspicion. But I wasn't finished, not yet, because their suffering alone wasn't enough. I didn't just want them broken, I wanted them shattered, the kind of shattered that leaves scars no one else can see. And the best way to do that wasn't to tear them apart from outside. It was to make them tear each other apart from within. The stage was set. Their trust was already crumbling. All I had to do now was push just a little harder. Trust is like glass. Once cracked, no matter how carefully you try to glue it back together, the fracture is always there. They were already cracked. I just needed to make sure the pieces cut them both. So I started setting traps. One Friday evening, I texted her from an anonymous number, pretending to be him. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Same place." She was sitting across from me on the couch when the message came through. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down, and I saw the blood drain from her face. She quickly flipped the screen away, biting her lip, fumbling for an excuse to leave the room. Perfect. She thought he'd slipped up, exposing their little secret. The next morning, I reversed the game. I messaged him from another fake account, this time pretending to be her. "Don't forget about tonight. Hope your wife doesn't suspect." And just like that, I created a lie inside their lie. By Saturday night, they were both on edge. She dressed carefully, nervously, her eyes darting toward me every few minutes, like she was afraid I'd notice. He showed up late to their meeting spot, his jaw tight, his phone clutched in his hand. I watched from the shadows of the parking lot as they argued in the car. She was waving her hands, desperate, pointing to her phone to prove something. He kept shaking his head, holding up his screen, showing her the messages. They were both denying, both accusing, both spiraling deeper into paranoia. That was the beauty of it. Neither of them could trust the other anymore, and every word they spoke only twisted the knife further. The following week, I escalated. I slipped a hotel receipt into his briefcase. A real receipt, forged with her name and the date of a night she claimed to be working late. When he found it, I could see the fury in his eyes from across the street. He stormed out of his office, phone in hand, dialing furiously. I didn't need to hear the words to know he was confronting her. That night, she came home shaking, mascara smeared down her cheeks, whispering to herself in the kitchen as if rehearsing lies. She didn't even notice me standing in the hallway, watching, and in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just exposing them anymore. I wasn't simply pulling threads from their tangled web. No, I was the one weaving it. Every lie, every doubt, every fracture in their fragile bond was now mine. I had become their puppeteer, and the more they danced to the strings I pulled, the closer they came to tearing each other apart completely. But still, I didn't feel satisfied. Not yet, because the truth was, I wasn't just after revenge. I was after ruin, and ruin takes patience. Fear is a powerful weapon. More powerful than anger, sharper than hate. You don't need to strike when you can make them believe the strike is coming. Every second of dread eats away at the soul, and I wanted them hollow. So I became a ghost in their lives. It started subtly. One night, while she was sleeping, I slipped her phone into my pocket, scrolled through her messages, and changed his contact name from Mark to unknown. When his next text arrived, it lit up her screen like a warning. "I need to see you." We need to talk. She jolted awake, stared at the glowing words, and sat there frozen for minutes. To her, it wasn't a lover reaching out, it was a faceless threat. Meanwhile, I played with him too. I knew where he lived. I knew what car he drove. So I started leaving little things behind. A folded note under his windshield wiper. She's lying to you. A single photo tucked in his mailbox, her leaving our house late at night. Looking over her shoulder. He never saw me, but I saw him. The way his head snapped around in parking lots. The way he double-checked his locks before walking inside. The way he jumped when his phone rang, as though the sound itself was a threat. They both felt the pressure, and I tightened it slowly, like a noose. One evening, she came home pale and trembling. "Someone followed me," she whispered, locking every window in the house. I acted concerned, wrapping an arm around her, masking my satisfaction with a mask of worrying. Later, I slipped into the bathroom, where her purse sat open. Inside, I placed a small black envelope, no name, no return address. Inside it, just one sentence scrawled in red ink: "You don't know who you're hurting." The next morning, she nearly fainted when she found it. She shoved it deep into the trash can, but I retrieved it later, smiling as I slipped it back into her purse again. Now it wasn't just a message, it was a shadow that wouldn't leave. And the beauty of it all? Neither of them dared confess the full truth to each other. She couldn't admit someone knew about us, because that meant exposing her own betrayal. He couldn't reveal the notes he'd been getting, because that would unravel his affair. They were drowning in silence, and I was the one filling their lungs. Every day, they grew more paranoid. Every night, they tossed and turned in their separate beds, haunted by whispers I created. And me. I slept like a baby, because fear had become my ally, my weapon, my masterpiece. But even fear wasn't enough. Not for me. The next step wasn't about haunting them. The next step was about control. Complete, undeniable control. And once I had that, the real revenge would begin. There's a point in every game where the pieces stop moving on their own, and the player takes full control. That was where I was now. They weren't making choices anymore. I was. He was first, the lover, the man who thought he could sneak into my life and steal what was mine. One night, while he was working late, I broke into his car. Nothing flashy, nothing violent, just enough to leave a seed of terror. I slid a voice recorder under his seat. On it, a single recording, his own voice, captured from a conversation I'd secretly taped between him and her. Just one line: "Don't worry, he'll never find out." When he pressed play and heard his own words echoing in the dark silence of his car, I knew it would feel like someone was inside his head. Someone listening. Someone always watching. Meanwhile, I shifted my focus to her. She was crumbling faster than I expected. Dark circles under her eyes, nervous laughter that ended in tears. She was living in constant fear, but fear alone wasn't enough. I wanted her to question her own sanity. So I made sure she did. I moved objects around the house when she wasn't looking. A framed photo she swore she'd left on the nightstand was suddenly in the kitchen. A favorite necklace disappeared from her drawer, only to reappear days later inside the freezer. At first, she thought she was just forgetful. Then she started whispering that someone was coming into the house. I fed the paranoia with silence. I never denied it, never confirmed it, just raised an eyebrow, let a smile slip, left her wondering whether I believed her or whether I was the one behind it. The cracks were becoming fractures. One evening, I left her a small gift on the pillow, a lighter, simple, black, unmarked. She picked it up with trembling hands, her voice breaking as she asked, "Where did this come from?" I shrugged, feigning confusion. But I knew what she was thinking. Him. The lighter was his. I had borrowed it weeks earlier, tucked it away, waiting for this exact moment. Now she believed he'd been inside our bedroom. Our marriage bed. I watched the horror bloom across her face as she clutched the lighter, her mind unraveling. By then, neither of them trusted each other. He thought she'd betrayed him by revealing their secret. She thought he was stalking her, slipping into her life in ways that made no sense. And I didn't need to say a word. I simply pulled the strings, and they danced. Every lie they'd told had become a cage. Every secret was now a weapon, and I held them all. But the most satisfying part? They still didn't suspect me. To them, I was just the husband, the man in the shadows, clueless and oblivious. They pitied me, underestimated me, forgot about me. And that was my greatest advantage, because while they were busy drowning in fear and doubt, I was already planning the final act, and when the curtain fell, neither of them would walk away whole. Fear alone wasn't enough anymore. They were both fragile, trembling, watching shadows that weren't there. But fear makes people desperate, and desperation needs a direction. So, I gave them one, each other. It started with small, quiet suggestions, anonymous texts sent from a burner phone I'd bought. To him, she's lying to you, she's using you. Watch your back. To her, he's obsessed. He'll ruin your life if you don't stop. I timed them perfectly. Messages sent late at night, just when doubt was loudest and sleep was farthest away. And it worked. She became distant with him, her replies shorter, colder. He noticed, of course, and when they met, he pushed for answers. Is there someone else? Are you telling people about us? His paranoia spilled out, and her own panic sharpened every word into a blade. I watched them unravel, piece by piece, but I wasn't finished. I needed something physical, undeniable, so I crafted it. One night, while she was out, I broke into her car. On the passenger seat, I left an unmarked envelope. Inside, a single photo, him, sitting outside her workplace in his car, watching the entrance. I had taken it myself, weeks earlier, knowing this day would come. When she found it, she was pale as death. He's following me, she whispered, clutching the photo like it was evidence in a trial. She didn't show it to me, she couldn't, but I saw it later, buried under papers in her drawer, a secret she was too afraid to admit. Meanwhile, I gave him a gift of his own. Another envelope, slipped under his door in the dead of night. Inside, a photo of her with me, sitting at the dinner table, smiling, looking like a wife who had nothing to hide. The caption I scrawled underneath read, "She's playing you." She never leave him. He stared at that picture for hours, I'm sure of it. Because the next day, I followed him. I saw the way he watched her from across the street, his face twisted with suspicion, anger burning in his eyes. The cracks had become chasms, and all the while, I played the concerned husband. You seem distracted, I'd say to her, or, is everything okay at work? She clung to me tighter each night, whispering fears she couldn't explain, tears soaking my shirt, and him. He was unraveling in his own silence. His late night calls went unanswered, his texts grew frantic, desperate. She ignored them, terrified, while I kept fanning the flames from both sides. It was beautiful, really. Watching two people who thought they were clever, thought they were in control, destroy each other with nothing more than their own secrets and the doubts I planted. But I wasn't satisfied yet. Not even close, because betrayal demands more than fear. It demands suffering. It demands loss, and in the final stages of my plan, I would make sure they lost everything: each other, their sanity, and the fragile little world they thought they'd built. The game wasn't ending. It was just beginning to burn. The stage was set. They were fragile, paranoid, and desperate for answers. All they needed now was a spark. And I was more than happy to provide it. It started with a note, simple, handwritten, no signature. I slipped it into her purse one morning before she left for work. By the time she opened it, she was already halfway through her day. The words were short, sharp, designed to pierce her like a blade. He knows, he's coming for you tonight. That same evening, I sent him a different kind of message. A single text from the burner phone, with an address, her apartment complex. And 4 words, she's lying again. Stop her. 2 different lies. 2 different flames, but together, they would ignite the kind of explosion I'd been waiting for. I stayed out of sight, parked down the street in my car, watching. My hands rested calmly on the steering wheel, my eyes locked on the building. As the clock crept past 9, she was home, lights glowing in the window. Nervous, I could almost feel her pacing, rereading that note again and again, wondering who he was, whether the threat was real or just her mind betraying her. And then he arrived. I saw his car pull up, headlights slicing through the night before snapping off. He didn't rush. No, he walked with purpose, with anger in every step. By the time he reached her door, she must have seen him through the peephole. Because the moment he knocked, the shouting began. "You've been using me," he yelled, his voice breaking through the night air. "You think you can play me like some fool?" Her voice cracked in response, high-pitched, panicked. "You're stalking me. You're sick. Stay away from me." The fight spilled over, raw and venomous. Every secret I'd planted, every whisper of doubt, came crashing down in a storm of accusations. "I should have known you'd turn on me," he roared. "I should have known you were crazy." She screamed back. Neighbors peeked out from their doors, heads turning, whispers spreading. But no one dared intervene. They just listened as the two of them tore each other apart in the hallway. And me. I sat in my car, smiling, because I wasn't just watching chaos, I was conducting it. Every word they threw at each other was a note in the symphony I'd composed. Every tear, every scream, every slam of a fist against the door was music. Eventually, the police came. Someone must have called. Blue and red lights flashed against the walls as officers separated them, pulling him away, calming her down. She cried, trembling, insisting he had threatened her life. He shouted, claiming she was lying, that she was the manipulator. To different stories. To different truths, both poisoned by my hand. That night, they crossed a line they could never come back from. She was terrified of him. He was convinced she had betrayed him, and both of them were too blind to realize the real enemy had been sitting in the shadows all along. I wasn't done, though. No, this was only the storm before the real devastation, because betrayal doesn't just deserve punishment. It deserves destruction. And in the final act, I would make sure they didn't just lose each other, they would lose everything. I had watched them crumble, piece by piece, like a house eaten away by termites. The lies I'd planted had taken root, their paranoia had bloomed, and now they were nothing more than shells of who they once were. But I wasn't satisfied. Not yet. Fear, suspicion, humiliation, they were only appetizers. The main course was still waiting. It came 2 weeks later. She thought she had escaped him. She blocked his number, avoided places they'd been together, even changed her daily routine. He, on the other hand, was unraveling. Fired from his job for missing shifts, looking haggard, desperate, alone, and me. I invited them both into one final trap, a letter to her, anonymous, of course. "Meet me at the old warehouse on 8th Street if you want this nightmare to end." A message to him. She's there, with him, tonight, the same place, the same time, and I was waiting. The warehouse was silent, its windows broken, the air heavy with dust and decay. I hid in the shadows, my heart steady, calm, like I'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. She arrived first, cautious, her heels clicked against the concrete floor as she stepped inside, clutching a flashlight, her breath trembling. "Hello, who's there?" Minutes later, his car screeched to a stop, heavy footsteps. The door slammed behind him, echoing like a gunshot. "I knew it," he shouted, his voice jagged with rage. "You dragged me here to humiliate me again." Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" "I was told, don't lie to me," he barked, closing the distance. Their voices rose, a cacophony of anger and fear, bouncing off the empty walls. And in that moment, I stepped forward, out of the shadows. Both their faces froze. "You," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Yes," I said calmly. "Me." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. "You think I didn't know?" I continued, my tone measured, almost conversational. "Every text, every stolen kiss, every night you thought you were clever. I knew. I saw it all." Her lips trembled. You're sick." "No," I corrected, my eyes locked on hers. "You're the one who betrayed." "I'm the one who simply balanced the scales." I turned to him. "And you thought you could take what wasn't yours. You thought you were untouchable. But now look at you, pathetic, broken, a ghost of yourself." He clenched his fists, his rage boiling. "You set us up." "I did," I admitted, smiling. "And you fell for every piece of it. Because liars are easy to control, cowards are easy to break." The weight of the truth sank in. Their anger turned to horror as they realized every step had been orchestrated. Every doubt, every fight, every tear. By me. I leaned in closer, my voice low, almost a whisper. "You both took something from me, my trust, my dignity, my peace. And now, I've taken everything from you. Your love, your sanity, your future. You have nothing left." Tears streamed down her face. He shook with rage, but there was nothing he could do. "Not now, not ever." I walked past them slowly, deliberately, my footsteps echoing in the hollow warehouse. At the doorway, I turned back one last time, consider this the last time you'll ever see me. From now on, you'll only see the ruins I've left behind, and then I left them there. Two broken souls, drowning in the wreckage of their own. Betrayal, chained together not by love, but by the destruction I had so carefully crafted. Outside, the night was still. The city lights flickered in the distance. For the first time in months, I felt a calm I couldn't describe. Revenge wasn't sweet. It was silent, and in that silence, I finally found peace.